Getting on the air this morning. I'm with Shannon Sweeney on a big day in the world of sports. No bigger headline than Tiger Woods' accident yesterday, but all kinds of other stuff, including Texas with an overtime win over Kansas yesterday. Shannon, Texas, its first ever regular season sweep. Texas's first ever regular season sweep of Kansas in program history, but especially Tigers. Shannon, we got a lot to talk about this morning.
Yeah, the Tiger story definitely dominating the news. Such a shock to so many when that story came out yesterday afternoon. Just kind of, put everything else into perspective. And like you said, great win for Texas, but not the headline we're focused on today.
Yeah, so much to get into. Again, our apologies for the late start, but we're up and running now. In fact, we're a little bit late. We usually do it at 6:20, but let's get you caught up on it now. It's time for the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. Okay, I'll break in about 2. So we'll talk about 2 minutes here, Shannon, then we'll break. Good luck. We'll do that again at 7:20. We do it 12 times throughout the day right here. Chris Duel show along with Shannon Sweeney. And Shannon, so much to process, so much to report and react to revolving around that Tiger Woods single vehicle crash. One of the things sheriff deputies are saying, he's lucky to be alive. He was wearing his seatbelt. No immediate evidence that he was impaired in any way, but reportedly serious injuries to his legs. He's been in surgery, and first and foremost, we hope and pray for Tiger Woods' recovery and to survive this. And it looks like certainly he should survive this. But question number 2 is his professional golf career going to come to an end because of this?
Right, and that is our poll question for today. So if you get over to Ticket 760 and AM 1300 The Zone, you can vote on that. I hope he can walk normally.
Yeah.
The amount of rehab he's going to have to do is going to be unbelievable. But no, Tiger being who he is competitively, I think he's more than capable of getting to that point.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it, all angles of the Tiger Woods story. In fact, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, he'll not only talk Spurs and Texas Longhorns with us, but obviously it's the big story in sports. He'll join us in the 8 o'clock hour, as will Andy Everett, who's been reporting on Tiger Woods ever since Tiger Woods became a professional. Andy is kind of our resident Tiger Woods expert, so we will access Andy Everett in the 8 o'clock hour as well. Your phone calls along the way, 800-707-9760. She is Shannon Sweeney. I'm Chris Duel. Quick break, then we'll dive right back into it with you. Thanks for being with us this morning. We're with you till 9. Lots to cover, and big Sam Ehlinger news as well that we'll get to. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chris Duel Show.
So I've got the Sam story and All-Star Weekend schedule breakdown and Antoine Winfield's tattoo for Salty Shakedown today.
Okay, say that one more time. I was like multitasking.
Sam's honor.
Okay.
Antoine Winfield's tattoo, and then the All-Star breakdown of the schedule. So if we want to get into the roster, I know you sent me that DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah.
To which I say, yesterday Jeff said that, that everyone loved his quote about how he's more focused on the season, but apparently he's a little butthurt.
He clearly feels snubbed. For everybody on Facebook Live, I just clicked over and saw comments. We've had technical problems this morning, but I think we're up and running now. Wes Perkins, Anthony Del Toro, Clint Proctor, Michael Rodriguez, Luisa Alanis, Laura Burris. Good morning, everybody. Pendejo, welcome in. Yeah, that's the person's name listed on Facebook. I don't say that on the radio, of course. Let me ask Jeremy. Yeah. I'm getting some audio here that I'm not sure where it's coming from. See, there's that. Is it there? I think it's there. Yep, that's what it was. Okay. So I'm going to walk into the studio and ask Jeremy what his plan is, see if he's in contact with Brian.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask Brian first, should Jeremy stay in the ticket studio for the time being? Great. If you're just joining us on Facebook Live, we've got some technical issues we're working through. We appreciate your patience. Okay. So Shannon, we're still waiting. I just asked Brian via text if and apparently Jeremy's in the and I'm going to have them jump on StreamYard. I'm going to send them the link, but Jeremy's in the control room. Apparently he's going to stay there at least until the top of the hour and then figure out via Brian if Tanner's good to run it or what. So let me see. I'm going to send them this link. Hello to everybody on Facebook Live. Eric Winchester, Armando Salinas, welcome from Henderson, Kentucky. Foam Foot 420. Maybe because Mike Taylor's back in town this week. Do you think this falls under the Mike Taylor curse? That's funny. So Shannon, based on what you told me about the shakedown, so we'll avoid Ellinger until that time?
Yeah, that's what I had that clip for.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, again, hopefully it's someone who can run that clip for you.
If not, I can say what he said.
Yeah, it's 7:40. Yeah.
Use for it.
Yeah, I know that, one of the default plans, and hopefully it can be Jeremy, but one of the default plans I know sometimes, I would hate for him to do it. Sometimes Brian in a pinch would jump in here, but my God, he's got so many things going on and coming off an unbelievable week where he spent every hour here during the storm. So I hope it doesn't come to that for him. But Tim Merriman, knows the WAI board inside out. So he's currently on that board. So I think that can work. Sam Tobias, good morning. I saw somebody, and we'll talk about this. Hey, Alan Green. I heard somebody this morning on a national show, and I mean, we're hearing, had Tiger not worn a seatbelt or had this, you look at that vehicle, sheriff's deputies do say he's lucky to be alive based on the rollover and that accident and what could have happened. Somebody said it was reminiscent of Kobe Bryant. I mean, can you imagine?
That was my first thought.
Yesterday? Yeah.
I was like, 2020 got Kobe, and now 2021 is,
yeah.
It's, and like the way the media storm around Kobe and the speculation.
Yes.
And one way you're thankful that it was just Tiger in the car, and also it's just horrendous. The picture of the car.
Yeah, my God.
I don't even know how it was just his legs.
Yes. Exactly.
And do you know the area he was driving in? Like, is it windy?
Very windy. Yes. Narrow, windy.
He was running late. So, and maybe because he was running late, maybe he was distracted getting calls.
Yeah, and you never know if he got a phone call or if he glanced at his phone or a text. God forbid.
And they said he wasn't like under the intoxicated or anything.
Yeah, no signs of that according to police officers.
Honestly, when I saw him trending yesterday, I thought, he's decided he's not going to play in the Masters. His back is too much of a problem.
Yeah, same here. It's like, we were talking about him with Andy and will he play or won't he? And, Andy saying, San Antonio might be one of the stops before the Masters that he might consider. So, yeah, I saw that too. And I'm going, okay. Tiger's in the news. It took me a while. I think we're back. Coming back. Welcome back to the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, on this Wednesday morning, February 24th, as the sports world and the world, Tiger Woods, a guy who transcends sports, kind of like a Muhammad Ali, a lot like a Kobe Bryant. So, even if you're not a big golf fan, so many people know who Tiger Woods is, whether or not you're a sports fan. Now, if you're a sports fan and you're listening to a sports radio show right now, so there's a good chance you're a sports fan, then your appreciation of Tiger Woods, your understanding of the career and life of Tiger Woods is probably greater than those who are not hardcore sports fans. But Shannon, you and I were talking during the break, and you look at the photos of this vehicle, that Tiger was driving that rolled over multiple times, and at least one end of it is completely smashed up, and he had to be extricated from this vehicle with the jaws of life. And if you know anything about physics, and apparently it rolled over multiple times, had Tiger Woods not been wearing a seatbelt, he would have been almost certainly ejected from this vehicle, and that almost always results in death. And the words of sheriff's deputies, not mine, quote, "He's lucky to be alive." So, Shannon, you and I were talking about it. A lot of people have brought up, this was reminiscent of the death of Kobe Bryant, and thank God did not, at least from what we know about Tiger Woods, and apparently he's responsive and reasonably aware, and we think recovering from a surgery in the hospital. Thank God this didn't end with Tiger Woods' death, as it did sadly for Kobe Bryant and everybody aboard that helicopter just over a year ago.
Yeah, Kobe Bryant, arguably, to a lot of people, particularly my generation, the best basketball player and just a guy known worldwide for the sport. And Tiger Woods the same way with golf and what he's done also for Black athletes and athletes from around the world for that sport, in a world sport. So everyone, like you mentioned, everyone knows who Tiger is. And we said it during the break. When I saw him trending yesterday, I thought, all right, he's pulled out of the Masters. He's just pulled out of something. His back is too much of a problem. Was not expecting this in any sort of way. And, we talk about that Kobe crash, the media frenzy that happened upon that crash without any real evidence, real information, of factual information. So everything's so speculative at the beginning. You just kind of held your breath with Tiger. Luckily, the LAPD or the sheriff's office released their statement, as they were the ones to help assist Tiger in getting him from that vehicle, which you mentioned. It looks like something out of a movie. The entire front of that vehicle is crushed. Airbags. I don't know how. It's just his legs. Thank goodness it's just his legs, because that alone is going to be a tough battle for him to overcome. But yeah, super scary. Like we said earlier, he is the top story because of who he is, and then for something like this to happen, just unbelievable. And you lived in California, so you're familiar with the drive he was taking, correct?
Yes, Rancho Palos Verdes, and it is very, it's kind of like a mountain isn't the right word. It's hilly. There are big hills for Southern California, windy roads, hairpin turns. It is, if you've ever driven, Pacific Coast Highway, up around, Carmel, or up around Central or Northern California, where there are not the cliffs here overlooking the Pacific Ocean like there are on Pacific Coast Highway, which is not far. PCH is not far from Rancho Palos Verdes, but the as I recall, and I've driven there a number of times, narrow roads, windy roads, hilly roads, up and down, hairpin turns. Yeah. You really need to be focused all the time when you're driving on those roads.
And we don't know exactly what caused the crash, but we do know that he was heading to the golf course to film. He's got a new show that they're working on where basically athletes and celebrities get to play golf with Tiger, and they just chat it up. And Drew Brees was at the course waiting for him. Tiger apparently running a little late. He had done this earlier in the week. On Monday, he shot with Dwayne Wade. And later in the afternoon, he had scheduled for Justin Herbert. So the crew and Drew Brees were waiting there. Drew Brees trending last night when this information came out. I thought, all right, Drew Brees finally is retired, or said he's coming back. And no, he is intertwined in all of this. And I my heart goes out to Drew, because you can't maybe help but feel a little, I don't know, I'd feel a little guilty that he was traveling to see me, to spend time with me. And so hopefully they're doing all right as well. Obviously the show is probably out the window at this point with Tiger needing to recover, but we do know that he was heading to the golf course to play golf, which to me just makes it that much more sad that he was this world-class golfer. He's just going to hang out with some buddies and play golf, and something like this happens.
Yeah, and reportedly at 7:12 in the morning, Southern California time. And one of the lessons here, Shannon, and we will find out in the coming days and weeks and maybe months if indeed the result of these leg injuries, and they are said to be serious, will keep Tiger Woods from ever playing professional golf again. But the lesson for us all, and this happens so many times in life, and we mentioned Kobe Bryant a few minutes ago, life can change, and life can change dramatically in a heartbeat, and via a car accident, via a plane crash, via something that you don't see coming. And obviously in the scheme of things and in the big scope, importance number one is Tiger Woods going to live? And apparently, yes. So thank God for that. Thank God nobody else was involved in the crash. Nobody else was hurt or killed. Again, you look at this vehicle, had it interacted with another vehicle, had there been a passenger, had there been a child on board, this could have been a lot worse. But once we get past that and believe and are confident that Tiger Woods is going to live, then we as sports reporters, you and I, and as sports fans, everybody listening to and interacting with this show, then our thoughts are, is his career over? And how powerful and how sad if indeed yesterday at 7:12 in the morning Pacific time, in a flash, in a heartbeat, his professional golf career, arguably the greatest ever, and probably not even arguably, probably unquestionably the greatest golf career ever. We were talking with Andy Everett about Sam Snead, and they have both won 83 majors, and they were tied, and not just majors, professional tournaments, not majors, professional tournaments. Tiger needed to win one more tournament to have won more professional tournaments than any other golfer ever. It may be over. I mean that, you talked about Drew Brees. Is his career over as quarterback of the New Orleans Saints? Probably, but we don't know for sure. The answer may, depending on the result of these injuries to Tiger Woods' legs, it may be unequivocal, and there may be no way that Tiger Woods is able to play golf professionally again. And just as a sports fan, A, thankful he's alive, but B, I have some sadness that the end of an era in golf may have taken place yesterday morning.
Yeah, with his back injuries, last 10 years, I mean, he's just been battling and battling. I mean, that has been his commitment to the game, of that he was going to stick around until he couldn't move anymore, it seemed like. And then he wins the Masters, almost 2 years ago now, and it seemed like something we'd never see again. And it drew everyone in. And so that's why there was so much discussion just going into the next couple of weeks of whether or not he would be there at this year's Masters, because people saw him win it when they thought he couldn't. And so that, when you're Tiger, it's like when you're Tom Brady, you always have a chance.
Yeah.
Right. But you got to be there to have the chance. And it's sad to think that we may never see him play professionally. Hopefully he can play for the enjoyment of it. His son, Charlie, we saw the video just a couple weeks ago of the two of them playing together. The kid is bound to be the next Tiger. I mean, why wouldn't he be? He is the offspring of the Tiger Woods. But if his dad isn't able to recover and into the form he used to be, his best coach is, that makes me sad too, but a little bit, a glimmer of hope in that Charlie could take over the reins for the Woods family and their stay in the PGA.
Yeah, and as I hear you say, Shannon, how Tiger has overcome surgeries and injury before. This is way down the road, but you mentioned Tom Brady. I mean, if anyone can overcome something like this and come back and play professionally again, you think Tiger Woods might be able to do something like that, which would be momentous and historic and very moving. And it is something that we would all certainly love to see. I do want to read, Shannon, for our listeners, anybody waking up this morning that hasn't seen this. This was put out on Tiger Woods' Twitter account and on his social media, a statement from his family. And it reads, We thank everyone for the overwhelming support and messages during this tough time. As previously communicated, Tiger was involved in a single car accident earlier this morning in California. He has undergone a long surgical procedure on his lower right leg and ankle after being brought to the hospital. And then they quote a doctor, quote, Mr. Woods suffered significant orthopedic injuries to his right lower extremity that were treated during emergency surgery by orthopedic trauma specialists at Harbor UCLA Medical Center, a level 1 trauma center. Continued open fractures affecting both the upper and lower portions of the tibia and fibula bones were stabilized by inserting a rod into the tibia. Additional injuries to the bones of the foot and ankle were stabilized with a combination of screws and pins. Trauma to the muscle and soft tissue of the leg required surgical release of the covering of the muscles to relieve pressure due to swelling. And that is Dr. Anish Mahajan, Chief Medical Officer and Interim CEO at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. Then 2 more paragraphs that read, he is currently awake, responsive, and receiving and recovering in his hospital room. Thank you to the wonderful doctors and hospital staff at Harbor UCLA Medical Center, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, and the Fire Department. Your support and assistance has been outstanding. There are no further updates at this time, and we continue to thank you for your well wishes and privacy for him and his family. That on the Tiger Woods Twitter page and other social media as posted by Tiger Woods' family. And regarding that ankle injury, Shannon, I had also heard reported very similar to when Dak Prescott had his injury, that, you know, the bone actually, you know, pushed out of the skin and was visible. I mean, apparently that was part of the mix here for Tiger Woods. Just an awful, gruesome, multiple injuries to his leg and ankle.
Yeah, I thought of Dak specifically with the bone popping out, and then also Alex Smith and his leg injury, and that his injury also became, you had to worry about infections. I mean, he's had 17 surgeries. Yeah. So you really hope that as part of that recovery that that leg can stay as clean and healthy as possible, because, you know, he's no stranger to back surgeries and surgeries in general, but for something like this, you just hope it's as smooth as a ride as it can possibly be, to get to a place where he can walk and walk comfortably. And, you know, if we ever see him again on the golf course, that's great. But right now, just get healthy.
And I think it's a great point, Shannon, that you bring up Alex Smith, the Washington football team quarterback, who, had to worry about infections, and when that can happen, God forbid, they may have to amputate the leg, and that was even away at the leg. That was being considered for Alex Smith. You know, hopefully Tiger Woods isn't facing that, but it is a concern. But as you mentioned, Alex Smith, there was a case where it certainly looked like this man will never play professional football again, given the extent of his injuries, and indeed Alex Smith did. So, you know, just invoking his name here, Shannon, I think is a sign of hope for Tiger Woods and for fans of Tiger Woods.
Yeah. Alex, a little bit younger though than Tiger. What's Tiger, 45 now? So I don't know how much that played in, but you definitely, if you're hoping for trajectory for this, to Alex Smith is a great name to throw out there. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Smiths have reached out already to the Woods family.
That's a great point. Luisa Alanis on Facebook Live writes, when I heard about it, I felt sick to my stomach. Felt too much like Kobe. She says, stay strong, Tiger, with the praying emoji. Thank you, Luisa. We are streaming live video on Ticket 760 and AM 1300, The Zone's Facebook pages. Lots of reaction there. You can react and interact with other listeners and viewers. Quick shout out and thanks to Jeremy Fouts for jumping in here. He was down the hall working on 1200 WOAI's Morning News.
You're our all-star, Jeremy.
Yes. We had technical issues, and he got us up and running. You rock, Jeremy. Tanner Carlson with the assist. We want to thank Tanner as well. Quick break. Lots more Tiger Woods coverage. We'll talk Longhorns and more. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chris Duel Show. All right. Yeah, Eric, 45 is young. Certainly from my perspective.
But in sports.
As an old guy. Oh, yeah, I know.
And like the PGA, I know they're not seen as like athletic, tight, big muscled guys, but there's a lot of walking going on.
Yeah.
Day in and day out. I don't know. Would they allow a cart for Tiger? If anyone
can
get a cart.
If they were ever going to change the rules for somebody, because thinking about what that would mean to the sport on so many levels, not to mention financially and for networks and advertisers.
All the bumper stickers. It'd be almost like NASCAR. Everyone with their own golf carts. The only issue is how do they take them to? I guess they just have to have a bunch of different stickers that they can place, because I don't know how you travel with a golf cart week in and week out.
Yeah. Steve DeRocco, good morning. The Rock. I saw The Rock yesterday. Had an adult beverage or 4 with him. Oh. Jeremy, are you in contact with Brian? So, okay, I figured.
He sent me a text that said, stay on ticket until I get there.
Okay, that may happen. Okay. Do you, and I was going to throw to you, but I saw you didn't have headphones, so I didn't know if you were prepared to talk to us on air. Okay. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I'll look first, but coming in here in the 7 o'clock hour, we'll set the table and say hello to you if that's okay. And we'll get your thoughts on Tiger. Oh, my goodness. That was an interesting opening hour, of which the first 24 minutes of the show we weren't yet. Well, we don't come on till 10 after 6, so we only missed 14 minutes. But Luisa Alanis says, good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Louisa.
He says, good morning, Luisa. I don't know if you heard that or not. Wes Perkins says lower leg injuries can get real bad as the blood flow is slower. Yeah, sadly. Wes Perkins also writes, Tiger may, as soon as I read something, another comment comes in and it scrolls out of my view. When I was reading Luisa's comment on the air, that happened. Like I got midway through the comment and then another one came in, so it scrolled out of my view. So let me get back to what Wes wrote. Tiger may not break Jack's record, but even if he even steps foot on a golf course, that would be a truly inspiring and incredible story. True, Wes. You think about if that moment happens, if he's able to come back and play professionally, you think for, what that moment might be like and how emotional and powerful that moment would be. Yeah, my goodness. Hopefully we get to see it. And if not, again, you just think, little did we know, all of us, the last time we saw Tiger Woods play golf, And for any of us, whenever that was, whether you saw him play in his last tournament or not, little did we know that you would not see this man play golf again, perhaps, which is, we talk about the GOATs. Tiger Woods was in one of our poll questions around Super Bowl time after Tom Brady won the Super Bowl. Who's the greatest GOAT of all time? And certainly on that list, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, Tiger Woods. Other people gave us Wayne Gretzky and others that would certainly round out the top 10. But, I think top 4, maybe top 3, but certainly I would think top 4, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Muhammad Ali, Tiger Woods, in no particular order, because I know a lot of people would say Ali's got to be at the top of that list, or Michael Jordan's got to be at the top of that list, or golfers might say Tiger Woods got to be at the top of that list. Eric Winchester says, good morning, Beth Settle. Beth, you are up early this morning. Eric Winchester says, Peyton Manning's neck surgery was a huge comeback. Tiger already has had an amazing comeback story once. Yeah, Eric, we alluded to that in the previous segment. If anybody has it in him to come back, you would think it would be Tiger Woods. Just grit, will, history, it factor, heart, soul. Hector Gomez says, good morning. Good morning, Hector. Prayers for Tiger and his family. Amen. Wow, Jason sending me some photos of an accident he was in 2003. Jason, that's amazing. Amazing photos. So glad you survived and recovered and thrived in the aftermath of that. See what else we've got here. Yeah, I'm looking at footage now. My God, you look at that vehicle. I'm looking at footage now that's aerial footage from Fox News. How he survived that, and the front of that vehicle completely smashed up. Wes Perkins writes, I'm rooting for Tiger even more now than before. His early years have been defined as winning and his later career overcoming. This would be the ultimate comeback, but first, prayers for a safe and speedy recovery. Amen. And Jeremy, at 7:35 lately, I've been doing sports history and sports birthdays before the Salty Shakedown. So we like go boom, boom, boom. So I've been tending to make sure we have enough time to do all that. The out time in this next segment is 7:27. I get out a little earlier. I get out at like 25 or 26 just to create a minute or two on the other end. Just to let you know. And then if you're still here at 7:35, then we use that sports bed for sports history, sports birthdays, and the salty shakedown. If for any reason it is Brian, if it's possible to show him that, obviously I want to keep it, if it's going to be Brian, I want to keep it as simple as possible for him. And I know he'll probably be multitasking because he's got so many responsibilities.
I feel so bad for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm amazed at A, what he always does, and B, what he did last week.
Yeah, I mean, talk about leading by example. He was the MVP last week.
And never gets cranky.
No, never.
You know, I've had bosses before when the going gets tough, they get a little cranky, and that's understandable, but he does not. Let's see. Eric Winchester writes, also shout out to today's vehicle design and safety requirements. You have that same accident in the 70s or 80s, it's most likely a much more horrible outcome. Very good point. Very good point. Yeah, I mean, the design of that vehicle such that, you know, the driver, an occupant. Wow, they're showing Dwayne Wade and Tiger an Instagram video the day before. Wow. And they're on the golf course. Shannon, have you seen that Dwayne Wade video?
I saw the picture. I didn't see the video.
Yeah, Fox, I don't hear the audio, but Fox is running the video right now. Apparently on Instagram. I'll have to go look at that. Okay. The world, and not just the sports world, certainly the sports world, but the world, because that's how big Tiger Woods is. The world is reacting, and I imagine a lot of people are saying prayers for Tiger Woods. Welcome in to the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney, as we react this morning and bring you the latest on Tiger Woods yesterday, 7:12 a.m. Southern California time, a single vehicle, multiple rollover crash in Rancho Palos Verdes, California, that left Tiger Woods with multiple and serious leg and ankle injuries, for which he had surgery throughout the day and overnight. We have been reacting to it. And Shannon, I was talking to you during the break there. Here in the studio, I've got Fox News Channel on the television. And moments ago, they showed an Instagram video that Dwayne Wade shot and put out on his Instagram, he and Tiger the day before. So that would have been Monday on the golf course. And as you described earlier, Shannon, Tiger was headed to the golf course to shoot a TV segment with Drew Brees, quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. But it was just so haunting and amazing to see. You know, there's Tiger joking around with Dwayne Wade, smiling, looking into the camera, having a good time. Just another day on the golf course, not a care in the world. And as we've been discussing, Shannon, everything in a heartbeat can change, sometimes forever.
Well, and thank goodness that it does seem like he will be able to make a recovery. Whether or not it's good enough to participate in more PGA events, we'll have to see about that. But that he will live on to have more of those moments. You know, I used to talk about haunting. Some of the pictures of just fans who saw Kobe out and about a day before that helicopter crash. You know, I think he actually took his daughter. You know, I think they were getting ice cream or something. You know, those pictures are horrific. And yeah, I love the Instagram videos that Dwayne, I was just looking at him after you mentioned them. You know, Dwayne was joking with Tiger, asking him how good he was at golf, and Tiger's like, good. Because I think athletes, when they play against someone in another sport who are pretty decent at the sport they play and spend so much time on, I think they get a little upset about it.
Yeah.
In a fun way, but in a competitive, like, I put all my time and effort into this, and you just go up there and, drive it 300 yards like nothing.
Pretty amazing. I want to give a shout out and thank, we had some technical issues this morning, and on zero notice, Jeremy Fouts was down the hall working at 1200 WOAI in San Antonio and got us up and running. Tanner Carlson was in there willing to do whatever he could as well. So a shout out to Tanner. But Jeremy, before we get your thoughts on Tiger Woods, first of all, a big thank you from Shannon and from me. And you got us going. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Not too shabby. I don't know if you saw here, my name is last minute, but not last place, because we are not last place on the Chris Duel Show.
Thank you.
Forgive me if you're saying anything, I can't hear you because I ran in here without headphones. But I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to help you guys out. Sorry about those technical difficulties, everyone. But it seems like we're going okay right now. So
yeah, we are up and running, and I am for those of people not in radio, if you don't have your headphones, it makes it a little more difficult. But I want to get one more thought from you, Jeremy. And I mentioned this, and you're probably not a huge hardcore golf fan. Speaking of those people, Andy Everett, who's not only a huge hardcore golfer and golf fan, but a Tiger Woods historian, essentially. He's going to be joining us in the 8 o'clock hour as well. But as I mentioned earlier, Jeremy, Tiger Woods is a guy who, like Muhammad Ali or Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, whether or not you're a sports fan, you know who Tiger Woods is because he transcends the sports. Tiger Woods is truly a global icon. And I know you were covering this from a news perspective as well this morning down the hall at 1200 WOAI. Just want to get your thoughts on this horrible Tiger Woods accident.
Like you guys were saying, I'm just glad he's alive. And you're correct. Tiger Woods transcends sports. Like he really is an icon everywhere. So I'm very glad he's okay. And I think the biggest takeaway here is the importance of wearing your seatbelt. I know we say click it or ticket. Evidently it's click it or die, because I mean, he's very hurt, but he is alive. And what they said was if he hadn't been wearing a seatbelt, would have been definitely a fatal crash.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeremy. And Shannon, you've said this a number of times this morning. And, I was just watching on the television again, aerial shots of that vehicle that rolled over and crashed. And you see some tires strewn and where the damage is on that vehicle is the front of the vehicle. All the front is completely smashed in all the way up to and probably beyond. And this is why his legs and at least one leg and ankle were severely injured. Tiger Woods is, as sheriff deputy said, lucky to have survived this crash. And certainly, as Jeremy mentions, Shannon, if he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, I mean, physics tells us, and we've seen it too many times, that bodies get ejected from spinning vehicles like that.
Yeah, it's not a bloody scene if you haven't seen the picture, but it is one where your mind starts spinning. So if you're not into then thinking about all the things that could have happened and along with what did take place, I would suggest trying to stay away from that image, because like I said, it looks like something out of a movie, like a Transformer movie.
And you brought up, and we've brought him up a few times this morning, Shannon, Kobe Bryant. And I remember, and Kobe next to Michael Jordan and a few others, rivaling Michael. Michael is considered the GOAT in basketball. Some people will argue LeBron James these days, but it's pretty much accepted that it's Michael Jordan. And it's interesting, Tiger Woods, Shannon, I remember right after the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, you and I did a poll of who is the greatest GOAT, now that Brady won another one. What was it? Tom Brady? And I remember Tiger was one of the four. Was it Tom Brady? Was it Michael Jordan? Was it Muhammad Ali or was it Tiger Woods? And I know we got other suggestions. Some people said, Wayne Gretzky and Michael Phelps, and we did get some others who can be certainly considered in the top 10. But as we talk about Tiger Woods this morning, he's not just another athlete, and he's not just another superstar. I mean, he is indeed, arguably, and maybe without argument, the greatest golfer of all time. And he is certainly in the conversation among the 3 or 4 greatest athletes of all times across any sport. I mean, this is not just a global superstar. This is one of the best there ever was.
Yeah, I think golf, just because of the pace of the sport and the variant of age range, it doesn't get as much credit for them being athletes as they should. I mean, when you think of the time it takes to play a round, and then you play around for 4 days straight if you're good enough to make it to the weekend, and then on top of that, all the practice and all the hours. I mean, you talk about 10,000 hours, right, to perfect something.
Mm-hmm.
These guys have done it week in and week out, year after year, and so many players on the PGA Tour, most notably Rory McIlroy, credits Tiger Woods and as he was younger, watching him become the man we know him to be now, as to why he got into golf and why he became the golfer that he is, so meticulous and really caring about the game. And, Tiger has brought so many players in who we now know and love today and see them as winning championships and winning majors, but it's all credit to Tiger. So in a way, Tiger has won more championships just by the fact that he's brought up these other guys, and for them to get to play with him, I can't imagine. Justin Thomas yesterday was at an event, and they talked to him about the incident. It was really shortly after it was even announced, so I'm sure his mind was all over the place. And again, I think Justin Thomas is my age, if not even a year or two younger.
Mm-hmm.
And he called Tiger, a guy he looked up to, but now one of his best friends. Because they do spend so much time together, and they don't even. It's not just about golf; it's about life. So that'll be something to watch this weekend for those players who are playing in an event, because that is going to weigh heavily on their mind.
That's a huge point, Shannon. This entire current generation of 20-something and even 30-something golfers who are professionals and the best of the best. And we talked about, Jordan Spieth, and we were rattling off their names. And we had the discussion earlier this week with Tanner Carlson. It's like, now that Tiger is aging, and, who's the next big thing? And we went through all of their names. But I would assume darn near all of them a huge influence and inspiration when they were kids growing up, choosing to become golfers and working to become the best golfers on the face of this earth, that the guy that they watched and were inspired by, and they wanted, you talk about in basketball, be like Mike. Everybody wants to be like Mike. They wanted to be like Tiger. And those who made it to the PGA Tour have come pretty darn close. You've reached the pinnacle. You've reached the top of the pyramid. You're the best of the best on this earth in golf if you make it to the PGA Tour. So you're right. Probably to a man and to a woman on the LPGA Tour. They are all probably very, very affected by this, even more so maybe than the rest of us who just kind of have passively, with interest, and even as fans, watch Tiger Woods. I mean, if you're a professional golfer, you probably have more of a stake in paying close attention to how Tiger Woods goes about being Tiger Woods.
Yeah, and even when, he won his Masters just 2 years ago after going through all of the hardships with his back that he did, I mean, that again is just sit back and take notes, because you never know how your career is going to go. But he proves that it is possible with hard work and dedication.
Wes Perkins on Facebook Live, and we're getting a lot of reaction, and we thank everybody for sharing their thoughts with us as we stream live video on AM 1300 The Zone and Ticket 760's Facebook pages. Wes Perkins writes this, and you just mentioned the back injuries, Shannon. So Wes writes this: I'm rooting for Tiger even more now than before. His early years were defined as winning, and his late career has been defined by overcoming. This would be the ultimate comeback, but first, prayers for a safe and speedy recovery. And when I think about this, Shannon, you think of the arc of Tiger Woods' career. And I remember him as a phenom coming out of Stanford, and he was going to be the next big thing. And then when he was just emerging, we then saw these videos of him as a child, as a 3 and 4 year old with his dad, playing golf. About as soon as he could walk, his dad put a little mini golf club into his hands, and he took to it naturally. But it's a fascinating arc of his career where early on he was just seemingly unbeatable and was just a force of nature in golf. Then he had the injuries, then he had the personal problems, and some embarrassing personal problems and marital problems. But as Wes describes, this most recent portion of Tiger Woods' career and life has been overcoming the injury, fighting back, kind of like Tom Brady, against father time and age, as you mentioned, Shannon, to win that Masters a couple of years ago. And now we're going to see, and we certainly hope and pray for the best, but overcoming these injuries first, just to have a good life, with his kids and his family, and then secondly, beyond that, if possible, can he return to the game of golf?
Well, and again, we mentioned Kobe. That's very much like Kobe. I mean, he was the assassin when he came into the NBA. He then had some personal struggles, injuries that came along the way. And towards the end of his career, he was still very, very good at basketball, but he started being a coach on the court to others around him and being, understanding that these were kids that are now in the league that have looked up to him and just want to get even an ounce of his knowledge bestowed upon them. And like how we miss Kobe, because we know how much more he had to give to the sport, even as a retired basketball player. I don't know what Tiger has planned when he is done with golf, but he's going to stick around the game and still be a presence.
That's a huge consideration as well. How much more, even if he doesn't golf again professionally, you got to believe Tiger will be an influence and an inspiration and a contributor to this sport and to sports as a whole. All right. We'll take a moment here. We do this at 6:20 and at 7:20, and we do it 12 times throughout the day between now and 8:20 at night here on AM 1300 The Zone in Austin and Ticket 760 in San Antonio. Listen closely. It's the Grand in Your Hand cash contest.
You money. Your chance to win $1,000 is right now. Text the nationwide keyword HOPE to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. Once again, that's HOPE to 200-200. Good luck.
Hope. That's a good word as we talk about Tiger Woods and his beginning of his recovery from yesterday morning's crash. And Shannon, obviously, it's the huge story. It may be seen by the time 2021 is over. This might be the biggest story in sports. We shall see. It's still very early on a February 24th, 2021 in this sports year. And we will get back to Tiger Woods, and we'll get back. I mean, it's the story everybody's talking about, everybody's interested in and concerned about. And I'm sure that Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, will have a lot to say about Tiger Woods, as certainly, and it's the reason we're grabbing him this morning, Andy Everett, who has covered Tiger Woods throughout his professional career and is a Tiger Woods historian of sorts. So we'll talk with Andy in the 8 o'clock hour about Tiger Woods. But Shannon, there were other things that happened yesterday in the world of sports. And if the Tiger Woods crash did not happen, this might be our big story today. Longhorns last night in overtime, beat Kansas 75-72 in OT. And Shannon, say what we will about Shaka Smart, but he is the first Longhorn men's basketball coach to defeat Kansas twice in a season, sweeping them in the regular season. That's pretty cool.
I'll give him a pat on the back, but that's about it. Shaka even said last night, this I viewed as a must-win game, particularly for the trajectory of the rest of the season. Was the last home game of the season. They have 4 road games to end the season. They were officially rescheduled. That schedule came out yesterday afternoon for the rest of the Big 12 games. Doesn't look like they're going to be playing Baylor unless they meet them in the Big 12 tournament. But Shaka credited the defense last night. They did what they didn't do against West Virginia, which seems, I guess it's a lot easier if you're going in at halftime and you're down to say, okay, we need to make adjustments, versus going in at halftime and not accounting for adjustments the other team is going to make when you're up by so many points. But they did come out, they made adjustments. It was a defensive ball game for Texas. They shot horribly from the field. They shot horribly from 3. They fared better on the line than Kansas did, which is, up for them about 77% from the line last night, but they held Kansas to 23 points in the second half and only 6 points in overtime. So credit the defense and that group getting back together. A lot was made of the argument that was had on the Texas bench and on the sideline of the last game. They even made a segment about it early in the game against KU last night. But that team was together, and you could tell that they were having fun playing basketball and doing so on a level that we need to see them carry out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Shannon, and you're right, the free throw disparity in both attempts and percentage. Texas got to the line 31 times.
Yeah,
while Kansas,
they did.
Yeah, goes to the line 21 times. So that's a 10 free throw disparity. And then Texas made 77.4%. Kansas makes 57.1. So
what was that 3-point percentage while you have those up right now?
I've got them. It's not that pretty. 5 of 26 for Texas. That's 19.2%. Kansas 8 for 24 from 3-point range, which is 33 1/3, which is about average in college.
Well, and Kansas switched to a 2-3 defense at one point, which Texas has struggled with historically, and that is where they start jacking up threes, because for whatever reason they just can't seem to get the ball inside. They pass around the perimeter and jack up shots, and they were missing threes after threes, particularly down the stretch, which again goes back to the incredible defense they were playing, to where it didn't end up getting the best of them for jacking up all those shots and having them not go in.
And I must say, and we've talked a lot about the Longhorns and kind of the arc of their season that looked so good early, handing Kansas and Bill Self their worst ever home defeat very early in the season, and then a lot of floundering for the Longhorns. This might be the boost of adrenaline that the Longhorns need, Shannon. Maybe they flipped. Let's hope. We'll find out. Did they flip the script? Because Kansas was playing good basketball. They were on a roll. Texas was kind of staggering after getting punched in the gut a number of times in recent games. So, you want to start peaking in March, and we're getting closer to March on February 24th. Maybe this is the beginning of a turnaround for Texas that might take them deep into both tournaments. Hopefully this is the case.
Yeah, I sure hope so. As a Texas fan and graduate, there's nothing I want more than to see Texas succeed in all sports, and basketball being the big dance. I want them to go, and I want them to be successful, and hopefully, like you said, this is the turning point for them.
Gotta love Jeremy Faust giving me some spill the wine. Eric Burden and the Animals coming up. Shannon's Salty Shakedown will also bring you this day in sports history and sports birthdays. Lots more coming, and a lot on the latest. And we're tracking if there are any new developments, and we'll continue to recap the developments involving the crash and now the recovery of Tiger Woods. We're all over that between now and 9 o'clock as well. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. I'm Chris. Thanks for listening to the Chris Duel Show. So I saw Brian, and what's the status? Are you sticking around or what?
It sounds like he's going to come in and run the board. He wanted me to get through this break, and then he's going to come back in here, and I'm going to show him, what he needs to know real quick. And I guess I'll hop back over there.
Okay. How easy or how much of a hassle do you think it'll be for him to hit sports history, sports birthdays, and then Shannon's bed?
It shouldn't be too bad. I mean, it's just a button press. Obviously you'll just have to make it very clear, like, this is when I'm doing it. Yeah,
and if you show him the rundown, and it's in caps, sports history, sports birthdays, and then Salty Shakedown. If you can just indicate and I'll just say those words specifically, Time for this day in sports history. And then if he can hit it, great. And if he doesn't, we're okay too. So cool, man. Thanks. So yeah, Shannon, as you probably heard, it's going to be Brian. Let's see, do I have you in queue? And where's mine? There it is.
Has he been there, or did he come in special?
Say that again.
Has he been up there, or did he just come in for this?
I think he usually comes in around 7:30, typically to start his workday. So, but I think he came in a little early to do this. So, yeah, I think I'm looking at Jeremy now walking over to OAI.
It's a great point, Eric. You'd also be surprised how confusing some people find pressing buttons.
So, Shannon, the music beds should be there, but if for any reason they're not, we'll just keep on going through. But I think they'll be there. Yes, I can.
You have a visual of next year. Do I need to give you some heads up?
I just let me see. I don't have a visual there, but I know the out time. I know the hard out at 55:10. So yeah, so
How much music do you like going out? Just under a minute, or what do you want?
yeah, just under a minute. And again, whatever's easy for you, since it's a curveball and you're here with no notice. So whatever you do is fine, and we'll roll with it. But typically, it's final minute. They come in with some music. But yeah, we'll go in succession here. I'll go sports history, sports birthdays, and then we'll roll into the salty shakedown. Thank you so much. Thank you. Shannon, before I dive into sports history, I'll have you do the poll question again. Is that cool?
Okay.
So we'll reset, have you do the poll question, then I'll dive into sports history. Here we come. Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show along with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. And yes, we are covering the Tiger Woods accident, the Tiger Woods story from all angles this morning. You can react with us, 800-707-9760 on the phone lines. Lots of people joining us as we stream live video on Facebook Live on both Ticket 760 and AM 1300 The Zone. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. We'll certainly talk Spurs and the big Longhorns victory with Bill, but I'm sure Bill will have some thoughts on Tiger Woods and Andy Everett in the 8 o'clock hour as well, who is a Tiger Woods historian and has been covering Tiger Woods from the get-go. So lots coming up there. And of course, Shannon, Tiger Woods is the focus of our poll question this morning.
Yeah, so we're asking if people think he will ever play professional golf ever again. Right now, overwhelmingly, the votes lead towards no.
Not a lot of optimism there. We'll give you the totals. You can vote at Ticket 760. On Twitter. You can get a link there as well at AM 1300 The Zone. In a moment, Shannon's salty shakedown. But first, let's get it rolling with this day in sports history. February 24th, 1978. Kevin Porter of the New Jersey Nets sets an NBA record with 29 assists in a game. That's an unselfish basketball player. Way to go, Kevin Porter. On this day in 1980, the U.S. Olympic hockey team clinches the gold medal in a 4-2 win over Finland at Lake Placid, New York. You'll remember the Miracle on Ice win against the Russians. Well, that was the semifinal. They had to go on and win the gold against Finland. They did that on this day in 1980. This day in 1987, Los Angeles Lakers center Kareem Abdul-Jabbar scores his 36,000th NBA point. He was pretty good. On this day in 2013, it was the 55th Daytona 500. Jimmy Johnson wins the second Great American Race. You know, Shannon, Jimmy Johnson, always one of my favorite NASCAR drivers because his name is Jimmy Johnson, like the Cowboys coach.
Yeah, that alone will get you going.
Exactly. I always wish Jimmy Johnson, the Cowboys coach, would have driven NASCAR. In that race, by the way, Shannon, 55th Daytona in 2013, Danica Patrick was the first female to start from the pole position. She also had the best ever finish by a woman at Daytona. She finished 8th. That was pretty cool. And finally, and it's interesting, we brought his name up this morning, Shannon. This day 1 year ago in 2020, it was the memorial service for NBA star Kobe Bryant. It was held at Staples Center in Los Angeles.
Is that one of the last times Staples Center was full of people?
Ooh, you're absolutely right. Because
we're coming up on the big anniversary of, we just need to shut everything down for 2 weeks.
And that was
2
March
weeks
11th.
will be fine.
Yeah. So you're right. That little did we know, you would never see that many people in Staples Center for a long, long time. That's this day in sports history. And now we like to go from history to who's celebrating a birthday today. Sports birthdays. Born on this day in 1874, Honus Wagner. Now, you may know him from one of the most famous and expensive baseball cards ever. Honus Wagner is in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was a shortstop, 8-time National League batting champion, born in Chartiersboro, Pennsylvania, and he died in 1955. Born on this day in 1940, Jimmy Ellis, WBA heavyweight boxing champ from 1968 to 1970, born in Louisville, Kentucky. Jimmy Ellis died in 2014. Born on this day in 1952, Fred Dean, Pro Football Hall of Famer with the San Francisco 49ers and the San Diego Chargers. Won a Super Bowl with the Niners, born in Arcadia, Louisiana. Fred Dean passed away last year, sadly. Born on this day in 1956, Eddie Murray, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame first baseman, 8-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glove winner with the Baltimore Orioles and the LA Dodgers. He was born in Los Angeles, California. And finally, born on this day in 1977, Money Mayweather, Floyd Mayweather Jr., American boxer, 5-time weight division world champion, a record 26 consecutive wins in world title fights, 10 by knockout, had an undefeated record of 50-0, born in Grand Rapids, Michigan on this day in 1977. Shannon, how do you think Money Mayweather celebrates his birthday?
Rolling around in dollar bills or $100 bills.
Yeah, let's just lay
or
money.
The biggest denomination he has available at that moment.
Yes. Let's lay dollar bills all over the mansion or $100 bills and let me roll in them on my birthday.
Right.
So, happy birthday, Floyd Money Mayweather. And we go from sports history and sports birthdays into Shannon's salty shakedown.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot of Tigers, so let's brighten it up, right? Let's brighten it up. NBA All-Star Weekend, It's coming. We've got the reserves list. We'll dive into that in a little bit, but the official schedule for the All-Star Weekend was announced. As we know, everything is happening all in one night. So these are Eastern times here. 6:30. We'll have the Taco Bell Skills Challenge. I don't know. Maybe each participant will also get one of those new chicken tacos sandwiches that they're talking about now, as well as the Mountain Dew 3-point contest, followed by the NBA All-Star Game at 8 p.m. Eastern. And during halftime is when we will get the slam dunk competition. I wonder if they're going to provide them with less attempts, because as we know, last year it went into overtime up until Dwayne Wade, I guess, got tired of it and botched the score and wrongfully crowned was it Zach LaVine? He messed it all up for everybody. He went with his own Miami former teammate there and ruined it for everybody. He should never be allowed back on the judges table. I kind of like that we're doing it all in one for one night. What I'm curious about now is the implications this could have moving forward with the NBA All-Star Weekend. Obviously, it's a huge cash cow for the NBA and for the cities who get to host it. But if you're a player, this is your All-Star break. So for most people, it is a break. If I am an All-Star and I can have extra days for break, but also be an All-Star, that's something I would love to have. We know it's a player-driven league. We know there's already some contention from the players of them even having the All-Star game this year because they were told they weren't. I don't know if this is a discussion that moves forward, but what do you like about the schedule this year, and how do you think it works in the future if they're might be changes to come.
What you suggest there, Shannon, that's a win-win for the All-Stars. It's like, yeah, crown me an All-Star. Let me get into the city, play the game, but give me more time off. I think the players would like that. And while, yes, on a day that we are very concerned about Tiger Woods, I like that you're going positive with all of this NBA All-Star info, and we'll get into it a little bit later, maybe with Bill Schoening. But as a Spurs fan, I must protest. Reserves were named to the All-Star team, and our good friend and a guy who's going through some heartache as well because his dad just passed away, DeMar DeRozan, passed over, overlooked, shunned for the All-Star game. I am none too happy about that.
Yes, and now that we have those reserves listed, the pool is set. Obviously, they get equal players from both the East and West. They then go into a pool. We've got Captain LeBron, Captain Durant. They will pick their teams on March 4th, dodgeball style. That should be interesting. 3 Nets make it to the All-Star weekend. Kevin, Kyrie, and Harden for the first time in Nets history. We also know that Gladys Knight will be performing the national anthem, and Florida A&M. The Florida A&M 100 marching band will be part of those introductions. Those are always fun. They're pretty hit or miss, but they're always a creative introduction prior to tip off of that game. Moving on to Super Bowl champion Antoine, Winston Jr. Am I saying that right?
I think so.
Okay. He got a tattoo to commemorate his Super Bowl win. It's a giant on his forearm, Lombardi trophy, prayer hands,
nice.
Yay Bucks. If you don't remember him in the game, he infamously threw up the peace sign to Tyreek Hill because that was Tyreek Hill's move during the regular season. He threw it up during the Super Bowl. He ended up getting a taunting flag, and so he was charged $7,800. But to commemorate his Super Bowl win, he can't wait for a ring. He has to do it right now. He gets a Super Bowl tattoo, to which Tom Brady commented, "Make sure you leave room," implying that there are more to come, which again, so annoying. But I want your thought on these Super Bowl tattoos, because as a player, Winfield Jr., thank you, Carl. As a player, I get it. And he's won it. So there's no taking that back. But we see a lot of fans, especially they always seem to be like Cowboys fans or Eagles fans, who at the begining of a season go ahead and get a Super Bowl tattoo for that season. And then they never even end up sniffing, they may not even make the playoffs. They certainly don't make the game itself. What do you do with that then? Your thought on these, what are they covering up with? Right?
Well, first of all, in the case of Antoine Winfield Jr. and any player, I mean, so many players have ink. We've talked about this. I'm not a tattoo guy myself, but if you got tats, and if you like tats, and if you're going to get tattoos, if you win the Super Bowl, just like a Super Bowl ring, why not? So I'm all for, do it. I flaunt it. You have achieved the top of the mountain. Good for you. I also do I know you're annoyed by Tom Brady, but I think that's funny that Brady would say, "Hey man, leave room. You got more coming," which is cool. But you mentioned it. You're right. I've seen it so many times, and it is Cowboys fans a lot of the time getting a Super Bowl tattoo way before the season really gets going. And I don't know what you do with that other than let the world know you're kind of a dope, that you jumped the gun. And I appreciate your optimism, but it's just a reminder that 25 years and counting now since Jerry Jones and company have delivered a Super Bowl to us.
Yeah, things like that remind me of Sharp at Texas A&M giving Jimbo a plaque during his introductory press conference that said national champion.
Yeah.
And he said, "You fill in the dates."
But see, that was also, I like that too, but that was almost like, hey, Jimbo, we rolled up the Brinks truck. We are expecting a lot of you. It was almost like, this is a celebration. We're introducing you, and it's a nice party, but you've got a mission here, and we expect you to achieve it. So I liked it, actually.
It was very much a Sharp thing to do, but as a Texas fan, seeing that happen at Texas A&M, it's just, give us all the ammo all at once. Why don't you? Because, of course, as we know, they've yet to make it to the pinnacle in a very, 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 very long time. And of course, last year they were
1939, I think. It was the
that's
one
correct.
Aggies
1939
championship. Yeah.
And as we recall, they were left out of the playoffs last season. So let's talk Texas while we're at it. Mr. Sam Ellinger was awarded the Collegiate Man of the Year. It's a Jason Witten award that he was given last night. To be nominated for this, finalists are recognized for demonstrating an outstanding record of leadership by exhibiting exceptional courage, integrity, and sportsmanship. Love him or hate him, across the board, collegiate football, Sam Ellinger is all of those things and then some. And he was throughout his time at Texas. It wasn't just his senior season. He was a leader coming in. You know, Tom Herman always talked about how much of an alpha he was and is. And with this award, he will be given $10,000 that will be donated to the University of Texas Athletic Scholarship in his name. Pretty great award. They showed a little video of him getting surprised by Jason Witten as he let him know that he had won, followed by last night's virtual kind of show about it. He had on a really great, almost Dallas Cowboys like suit, almost looked identical to Jason Witten as they were standing next to each other. But he talked about growing up in Texas, you know, just like we've been talking, people watching Tiger Woods and then going up into that next level and getting to play alongside him. He was standing there right next to Jason Witten. Like, I am a Texas kid. I grew up watching Jason Witten and idolizing him, just not just for what he's done on the field, but off the field and the leadership that he's had in his 17 career playing professional football. That's something I've always tried to instill in myself and aim for, and it's paid off. I can't wait to see where he lands at the next level. I know the quarterback controversy that we're surrounded in right now makes it that much more difficult to pick a landing spot for him. But wherever he goes, whether he's a starter or not, you know he's a great guy to have in your locker room. Your thoughts on Sam getting this award?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And first of all, you're wondering where Sam Ellinger might land. And I know the odds are stacked against him.
Jerry would never.
I would love him for being a Cowboy.
Hates drafting Texas players.
Be a Cowboy, Sam Ellinger. But, and again, and I looked at the video and reflected on Sam Ellinger's career at Texas. Talk about a guy who was mature for his age, even as a freshman. You could see he was a leader. And as we know from his history, he was born to be a Longhorn quarterback.
Oh, don't they love to share that?
Yes, and they should. And I agree with you. Whoever drafts this guy, whatever. I mean, hopefully he becomes a starter in the NFL and, you know, shocks a lot of people. But if he's a backup, if he's Colt McCoy for 10 or 15 years in the NFL, I agree with you. He will be an asset to any team in any locker room. And I just think he's a guy who, and I feel this way about Jason Witten, who is going to be a coach in this league and is someday probably going to be a head coach. But, you know, first for Sam Ellinger, his playing career, and I like you, I can't wait to see where he lands.
Yeah, this award started being given out in 2018 with Jason Witten and his wife's foundation. So I can't, you know, for the third recipient of this award, I think he's more than deserving, particularly for what he's done off the field and on, which is a very key element for winning this award. You know, I, like you, would love to see him succeed in the NFL. He's like a Baker Mayfield in that he's very good at football, but that's where it ends, right? They're off the field. They're completely different personalities. Yeah. Baker Mayfield is shock and awe, where Sam is leadership, and understands that the cameras are on him. He'll probably never live down, "Hey, Texas, we're back."
Yeah. But he learned from that.
He learned from that.
Yeah.
And it was more of a playing to a crowd rather than trying to incite riots across the Big 12 and the rest of the college football landscape. So congratulations, Sam, all of Texas. Super proud of you. Super thankful for the time you spent at Texas. A lot of media members talked about how great of a guy he was to cover, always willing to sit down and chat and give answers the best he could. You know, he wasn't up there just so he wouldn't get fined, although he did say that once during a press conference day, but he said it jokingly, so that's okay. Again, he knows what he's doing. He's a great TV guy.
Yeah,
he knows what to say to be fun, but not to incite anything terrible. And there you have it. Today is Salty Shakedown.
Excellent salty shakedown, Shannon. And as we talk about Sam Ellinger, and, you know, there's a lot of people who don't think he necessarily has NFL starting quarterback written all over him like a Trevor Lawrence sunshine does in this draft. But somebody who occurs to me that might be a template for Sam Ehlinger is Drew Brees. Another kid from Austin originally. And I saw Drew Brees play for Purdue in the Alamo Bowl, in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. And Drew Brees, like Sam Ehlinger, was, some people obviously argued that Drew Brees maybe isn't tall enough to play quarterback in the National Football League. Now he's got like all the yardage and multiple other records. So, you look at the leadership qualities and the will to win and the discipline and the it factor of a Sam Ehlinger, and I think we shouldn't bet against him. He might, like Drew Brees, find a way to succeed in a big way in the NFL.
The last few seasons, his name appeared on the Heisman watch list at the beginning of the season because, he is at Texas and he is quarterback and he has great numbers. If you look at his numbers, he is fantastic. It's just Texas wasn't getting the wins they needed to keep him as relevant. And with the height thing, look at Baker Mayfield, look at Kyler Murray, look at Russell Wilson. I don't know that that's an argument anymore, specifically in the style of play that the NFL does right now. And he's a great runner, which I know the NFL is not always too keen on, especially a guy. I think one thing that is kind of hindering him going into the draft are his concussion history that he's had, and because he does continue to run a lot. But I think, like you said, great guy to have on your roster, starter or not.
Lots coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. We'll talk Spurs. We'll talk Longhorns' big win last night against Kansas. We'll talk Tiger Woods with Bill and Andy Everett a little later in the 8 o'clock hour as well. Lots of Tiger Woods reaction coming your way. She's Shannon, Salty Sweeney. I'm Chris. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're with you till 9. It's the Chris Duel Show. All right. Nobody got hurt. Almost there.
So I'll get Bill ready.
Super. Thank you so much.
I'll probably wait about 3 or 4 more minutes and then call you.
Yeah, we're not back till 8:06, so you got plenty of time. Yeah, I was at that Alamo Bowl, Mooses. I saw Drew Brees in his Purdue uniform. Little did I know he would become the most prolific quarterback in passing yardage in NFL history. But you got to believe Tom Brady still wants to catch him. John McGee, good morning. Dean Stone, good morning. Sam Tobias, Anthony Del Toro, Carl Fisher, good morning. Yep, Marco Bellinelli did win one with the Spurs, that's correct. Jesse Bratton, good morning. Barney Segura. Yeah, I know. We could have used touch this morning, Barney. You're right. Eric Winchester. Armando Herrera. Bernard Trefan, good morning. Thank you, Bernard. I'm glad you like my Be Kind Rewind retro blockbuster video t-shirt. Yeah, Cornhuskers were cool in the Alamo Bowl. Yeah, Michael Bartlett would have been a good idea too. You're right. But Bartlett's going to be back here I know he does afternoon work, but he'll be running the Spurs broadcast tonight. Sam, that is good news. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I keep trying to. My mom is 97. I keep trying to get her an appointment for the vaccine, and every time I try, I can't. They're either out or her clinic is well med, and they're either out or they're overloaded, and so she's on a wait list with them. Then I see everybody on Facebook getting the mass vaccine in their car at the Alamo Dome, but you go to the city's website to sign up for that, and they're currently saying, we're out of vaccine. We can't take any more appointments right now. Check again later, and we'll have the link. And it's getting a little frustrating for me. So, Sam, for you to say, Sam Tobias says that the FDA just gave the green light for Johnson & Johnson's vaccine. So, okay, yeah, we're good for several minutes. So take your time when that happens. We usually go several minutes with him anyway, so we should be good.
You want to wave at me when you'd like me to start that since it's been close to the bottom, or do you just want me to start at
I tend, especially with a guest in the next segment, which would be Andy. Yeah, I'll probably get out right around 26 is the listed out, so right around there, 25 or 26. So in other words, I wouldn't want to go over because I don't want to take away minutes from the next segment. So.
If you want to go before 25 or so, just wave at me and I'll start it. If not, I'll start it.
Okay, sounds good. We'll probably hit right between 25 and 26. Something else that I'm looking at the Tiger Woods vehicle on TV again here. something you don't think about. I mean, he was stuck in that vehicle. You got to wonder how long, and it was on its side, smashed up. He had to be in pain. At least one leg and ankle mangled, if not both, and stuck. How long did it take first responders? And ultimately, he had to be extracted with the jaws of life. That must have been awful and harrowing for him in those minutes, probably several minutes, that it took people to arrive. Bill Schoening is there. We'll go to Bill Schoening. And Shannon, it's hard to just talk Spurs right away with Tiger being the big story. So I think we'll start with Tiger. And I will assume that you're going to grab second question, and I'll keep an eye on you for follow-ups. But yeah, it would just be weird to like dive into Spurs and then Horns and then save Tiger for last because it's such a big story. So we'll start with Tiger and then go Spurs, Horns, and maybe even come back to Tiger. We'll see how the flow goes with him. Oh, and he may not have seen. He was filling in for Carl he texted me last night. He may not have seen the Longhorns game, so we may just talk with him, how big it is to sweep Kansas. He was calling a regional quarterfinal high school playoff doubleheader last night. Georgetown girls versus Bernie Champion and Georgetown boys versus Alamo Heights. So I may mention that in his intro. Yeah, Muses, who was in an accident, and those photos are stunning and frightening that you sent me. Muses says, luckily I wasn't trapped in my car when I had my accident, but the strangers that stopped to render aid will always hold a special place with me. Yeah, God love people who are good enough in a moment like that to help. There's certain people who will just keep on moving on when they can be helpful and maybe save a life.
Now, Chris Duel.
On the morning after Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. And of course, 99% of you know what I'm talking about when I say the morning after. It's the morning after the Tiger Woods accident, which is the big story, not only in the world of sports, but as Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, and I have been discussing, Tiger, like Muhammad Ali, like Michael Jordan, like Kobe Bryant, transcends sports. So we'll not only talk Tiger, but right now we've got the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, who is not only the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. I understand yesterday he was the voice of high school playoff basketball, Georgetown girls versus Bernie Champion and Georgetown boys versus Alamo Heights. Bill Schoening, he's always working. Bill Schoening, how you doing this morning?
Doubleheader last night. That was crazy, but it was fun. My son Carl, who was on your show from time to time, co-owns a company called SHN Sports, and they live stream sports basically based in Georgetown, north of Austin. And there's a university up there called Southwestern University, a Division III school. So he's been doing their games, and also some of their high school games, Georgetown High, and there's another high school in Georgetown called Eastview. So his company handles the live stream for those schools and different sports. So because there's so many different sports going on right now, baseball's already started up. Southwestern University actually has a spring football schedule because they weren't able to play football last fall because of COVID. So they're playing 5 or 6 games in the spring. So Carl's involved with that. So he can't.
I'm going to direct him to Tiger here, and then you jump in with number 2 on Tiger.
Craig Way, who's the voice of the Texas Longhorns, who seems to somehow juggle a bunch of different balls in different directions and just ends up able to be a couple different places at one time. So anyway, last night, long story short, I was in Buda, and unfortunately, the 2 San Antonio area teams lost last night.
Oh!
Bernie Champion had a chance in their playoff game against Georgetown, but they lost by 1. And then the Georgetown boys took care of Alamo Heights and kind of blew them out in the fourth quarter. It was a close game for a while, but anyway, but it was fun to watch those guys, and I got a chance to visit with a bunch of Alamo Heights people last night, and a couple of them said, "Hey, this is a good stepping stone for you. You might have a future in doing Alamo Heights. Maybe there's another step forward for you after this, you know." So anyway, that was fun, and it was great to socially distance, but visit with a lot of San Antonio people last night in Buda as they were there to see the Alamo Heights Mules play.
Hilarious. And I live about a quarter mile from Alamo Heights High School. When they play their football games, I can hear the crowd and hear the band from where I live. I live that close. So I have a special place in my heart for the Alamo Heights Mules. Bill Schoening, obviously we're going to talk Spurs, and you, given your longtime Longhorn connection as the voice of the Longhorns 20 years ago before you became the voice of the Spurs, we'll get your thoughts about what it's like for them to have, for the first time ever, swept Kansas in the regular season, which they did last night. But I mean, we would be remiss if we dove into that and not talked for a moment about the big story in the world of sports. Obviously, the Tiger Woods accident, as Shannon and I have been mentioning, Bill, like Muhammad Ali, like Michael Jordan, he's a guy who transcends sports. So I think we got not only sports fans, but people around the world. He's kind of a global icon. I mean, not kind of, he is a global icon. Just your thoughts, Bill Schoening, on what could have been a whole lot worse, but is still a very frightening accident yesterday for Tiger Woods.
It was really kind of upsetting when I started seeing those reports yesterday that Tiger was involved in an accident. Obviously, I listened to the police reports and the different officials who had things to say afterwards, and they said him, wearing his seatbelts probably saved his life. But man, when you looked at the condition of that vehicle, and of course they had to use the jaws of life or whatever they call it there in Southern California to extract him from the vehicle, and it's very, very scary. So I'm happy that eventually he's going to be okay. Obviously, he's got a long way to recover. Hopefully, he'll be able to recover fully. But it's a very, very serious accident. And it's hard to imagine him being able to come back and play golf after this. Now, I know you go back a long ways, Chris, and not as long as I do now. Hogan was in a very, very serious accident back, I think, in the late 40s. And he was able to come back and actually win the U.S. Open a couple of years later. Now, he was a younger man than Tiger. Tiger's in his mid-40s. So hopefully Tiger will be able to fully recover from this and return to the PGA Tour. That's going to take a while. That's not the priority right now. The priority is him to be able to walk again and do the things that he wants to do with his family. Obviously, he's got his young son that he's bringing up that is going to be a very good golfer also. He's got some talent. So I'm just thankful that Tiger is going to survive this. And, maybe it's a lesson learned for all of us to be careful. You probably know that area better than I do, Chris. There are some winding roads in Southern California, in the Los Angeles area, that you've got to really be careful when you're driving. And that's true in any area, obviously. But if there's curves and turns that you have to navigate, negotiate, you got to slow down. And I haven't seen all the reports about how fast he was going, but it's very difficult when you don't slow down when you need to, and a result of something like that could happen. And I'm just happy that he's going to survive.
Now moving on from Tiger, because of course, like Chris said, it's top story of the day, but top story for us here in Central Texas, the Spurs finally back in action. They take on the Oklahoma City Thunder. We talked about it yesterday on our poll question of kind of these first 3 games back, what people expect those outcomes to be. A lot of people thought it would be either 2-1 or 1-2. Jeff Garcia spoke to us. He said if tonight's game would be the one that they should most likely win of those 3 games. Of course, they play the Pelicans and then followed that up with the Nets. What are you seeing these first 3 games back as they kind of, come back from the COVID issues and they're still without DeMar DeRozan?
Shannon, it's very difficult to project past tonight because we don't know who will be available Saturday against New Orleans or beyond. So it's still a very, very fluid situation in terms of who will be available, when DeMar will be able to come back from California. He's with his family right now after the death of his father, and of course the COVID testing. So it's very hard to project past tonight. I can tell you tonight, it looks like they're going to have 10 guys, hopefully, and the rotation will be a lot different. And obviously they're missing 3 starters and 5 rotation players, but they've got some guys who can play. Now, Luka Šamanić and Trey Jones played extremely well in the G League. Now, the G League is not the NBA, we understand that, but both those guys played well, and they probably are in good game shape because they've been playing games while the Spurs have not been able to even work out very much. They've had 2 practices, and Pop was saying it's kind of on-the-job training with some of them because they haven't been able to play together, a lot of these guys. So we'll see some different combinations out there tonight against Oklahoma City. But Chris, you go back just a few years, Pop would hold guys out and rest guys in different situations, and we saw the bench really come through in situations. Now I'm talking back in the Duncan, Ginobili, Parker era, when Pop would rest guys sometimes, and we would see some bench players really show what they could do. So I think that might be an opportunity for just pulling out a few names like a Drew Eubanks or a Trey Lyles to get some extra minutes and have an impact on the game. These are professional players. So we've seen other teams come into the AT&T Center after COVID or during their periods of shortness, being not at full strength because of several players missing because of COVID, and play very well. So they're certainly capable of going up there and beating Oklahoma City, but it's a matter of, all hands on deck, next man up, so to speak. So I'm confident they can do that as long as they've got those 10 guys.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. And for people who may not know, tonight, the game at Oklahoma City against the Thunder, tip-off just after 7. So Bill Schoening will have Spurs Radio Game Night on the Spurs Radio Network, originating from 1200 WOAI in San Antonio at 6:30. And Bill, it's as you mentioned, it's a challenge. The Spurs are next man up, and I sure don't count them out. I'm going to be fascinated to see how they perform tonight and who might step up for the Spurs. But it's a little sad that this kind of happened to them and they haven't played since Valentine's Day when they beat the Hornets 122-110, because things were looking so good. There was a great start to the rodeo road trip. They were 9-3 on the road. They were, for the first time this year, 5 games over 500 at 16-11. But, we've seen this happen to a lot of other teams in the NBA, Bill. So I guess it's just the Spurs' time to deal with this adversity. And, as soon as we can get everybody back, hopefully we get everybody back and then move on from there.
Yeah, I remember in one of those games in the early part of the rodeo road trip saying, hey, this COVID thing is not over. It's not behind us yet. And that was very prophetic because clearly just a couple days later, the Spurs got hit with this. So it is unfortunate because they were playing well. They finally had some traction and some momentum. Right now they're tied for the 5th spot. I think they actually moved into 5th last night with the way some of the games fell out last night. So it hasn't hurt them in terms of the standings, but obviously it's going to be a little bit of a challenge now to try to get back everybody on the same page until they start getting guys back. And obviously some very key rotation players like DeMar DeRozan, who, as we mentioned, won't be there. It's not because of COVID for DeMar, but because of death in the family. But the other guys, Keldon Johnson was playing very well, and that young energy that Keldon brings to the table. So obviously with all these different things going on, it's a challenge for Pop and the coaching staff. But again, I really do believe that they're equal to the task. I think that the way that they play, the way they've been playing together, their defense has been much better, even with missing some key pieces. I think that they're very capable of going up there and giving a very, very competitive game to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Well, just as the Spurs are about to get started, we are coming up against the All-Star break, so things will come to a short pause. Of course, last night, the rest of the All-Stars were announced. DeMar DeRozan left off that list, to pretty wide shock of the Spurs fans, and not just Spurs fans, but DeMar himself tweeting, "Can't help but think how fake it is." Do you think he's deserving of that roster spot?
He's definitely deserving. There's no question about that. But in the big picture, and maybe it's best that he doesn't, go, because I think that he could use the time to kind of mentally refocus after such a tragedy in his family. And I know that he had even said earlier, he was quoted as saying that the Spurs making the playoffs is his number one priority. He wants to lead the team to the playoffs. He's not too concerned about making the All-Star team. And it's very strange. I think only 4 times now in the 44-year history of the Spurs have the Spurs been without at least one All-Star. So it'll be a little different not to see a Spur at the All-Star game. But that really isn't the priority for these guys right now, Shannon. It's trying to make the playoffs and play well. They've got a few games left here before the All-Star break. And then hopefully, during this time before the All-Star break, they'll be whole again. And these guys will be able to come back to the team. That's the main priority right now, is to try to play well and be right in the mix for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I would certainly, I agree with Shannon and a lot of Spurs fans. And as you just said, Bill, certainly DeMar DeRozan is deserving. I think it would have been very nice if he had been named as a reserve. Obviously, as you mentioned, Bill, he's going through it, having lost his father just a few days ago and being with family in Los Angeles. But speaking of DeMar DeRozan, Bill, as we speak with the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, something about his game this year, there's like another layer of energy. He's always been great, and he has been a multiple-time NBA All-Star in his career back when he was with Toronto. But especially in crunch time this year, I've noticed that with so many young Spurs, it's nice to see, DeMar has kind of been the guiding light, and a lot of times is wanted and gotten the ball in his hands, hit the key shot late in the game, hit the key free throws late in the game. In fact, our good friend Michael Bartlett on the WAI broadcast, on Spurs radio broadcasts, and on Spurs React, he called him DeStar DeClosen. He used to call him DeStar DeChosen, and this year he calls him DeStar DeClosen because he has really been kind of the closer for the Spurs this season.
Not only leading scorer, he's leading playmaker. He's leading assist guy. So the ball's in his hands a lot. And what we've seen, too, is his willingness to play the role of distributor, especially early in games. Sometimes we see DeMar, shoot and score early in the game, but then other times we see him kind of try to get others involved. And I think that's one of the things that he's done this year. And a young guy like Keldon Johnson really relies on DeMar being kind of a big brother. And it's very important for some of these young guys to have an older teammate like DeMar to kind of show the way. So even though the Spurs are in this kind of youth movement, the average age is 25 and a half. It's the youngest team that Pop has had in his 25 years as head coach. It's also good to have some veterans to show the way, and DeMar has certainly done that.
Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. Bill, before we let you go, got to get your thoughts. And I know you were doing a double-header broadcast of high school playoff basketball last night while the Longhorns were playing Kansas. But one of the big wins, probably, I would say maybe the second biggest win of the season for the Longhorns, the first one being at Kansas earlier this year when they handed Bill Self and the Jayhawks their worst at-home defeat ever. And then last night, they do something no Longhorn men's basketball team has ever done. They sweep Kansas. They win the game 75-72 in overtime. How big is this? And I know it's been kind of a rocky season for the Longhorns, although there's number 14 in the country. But to sweep a blue blood program like the Kansas Jayhawks, how big is that for this program?
Lead in the second half against West Virginia and lost that game and lost the lead for them to bounce back and beat a school like Kansas. Although, to be honest with you, Chris, Kansas is not the Kansas of years ago. This is not the strongest Jayhawk team that Bill Self has had, but it's still a big win for the Longhorns, no question. I remember when I first started with the Big 12, I had already been with the Longhorns for a number of years, and then, of course, the Longhorns joined the Big 12. I believe it was the 96-97 season was the first year in the Big 12. And they had guys like Jacques Vaughn, and I think Paul Pierce might have been on that team. So, going back to the days of Kansas being a real powerhouse, winning at Allen Fieldhouse is huge. And, of course, last night was a home win. But, yeah, that's a really good feather in the cap to be able to sweep the Kansas Jayhawks.
And I know, Bill, the Longhorns, up until the win last night against Kansas, have been kind of floundering and losing some tight ones against some really good Big 12 opponents. But as you look at this Longhorns team and you look at this talent, do you see this as a team that could, get it together and maybe peak at the right time in March and do some damage in the big tournament?
There used to be an adage about the Big 12 or about the NCAA tournament, rather. Do you have good guards? Because guards can carry a long way in the NCAA tournament. And Texas certainly has, with Jones and Coleman and Rainey. They've got some good guards. They've got a good backcourt. And those guys will have to lead the way. But if they can get hot at the right time, they're very capable of getting a run in. Yeah, for sure.
Voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. He will have the call tonight. Tip-off just after 7 o'clock from Chesapeake Energy Arena in Oklahoma City. Bill calls the games remotely from the AT&T Center this season in San Antonio. So Spurs Radio Game Night, the pregame show on the Spurs Radio Network, will be at 6:30. Bill Schoening, always outstanding, sir. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you on the radio tonight.
If I mistakenly call the San Antonio Spurs the Alamo Heights Mule.
I have a feeling you won't do that, but if you do, I'll be there for you.
Thank you very much, Chris.
All right, thanks so much. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. And Shannon, how cool for that if you're like one of those 4 high school teams and you're tuning in on the stream and you've got the voice of the Spurs, Bill Schoening, doing the play-by-play. That's amazing.
I know. If I'm a parent, I'm recording that entire game and pulling any mentions of my kid.
That's a great point. You want that audio. Absolutely. All
Make it
right.
a ringtone.
Yes. Coming up, the big story is Tiger Woods, and a man who has covered Tiger extensively, and I think I would accurately call him a Tiger Woods historian, is Andy Everett. Andy Everett, not only the voice of UTSA athletics, but he also hosts the golf show on Ticket 760 in San Antonio. Big golfers, gone to Scotland countless times. He's played a lot of the big courses, and he's been all about covering Tiger Woods ever since Tiger became a pro. So Shannon and I wanted to get Andy Everett's perspective on this Tiger Woods accident. So Andy Everett will join us next. You can jump in on the phone lines, 800-707-9760. We're also streaming live video on Ticket 760 and AM 1300 The Zone's Facebook pages. Lots of great reaction there as well. With you till 9 o'clock. Thanks for being with us. You're listening to The Chris Duel Show.
So for Andy, are we just kind of going to give him the floor here?
Kind of, and we'll just kind of see how the flow goes. I mean, he tends to.
I'm curious if he has more information on the actual show that they were making.
And he might. That's a good question. That's a great question. So Andy usually calls us. So that number's there as a backup, but he typically calls us.
Refire the spot block. Something hung up there. We'll be good, but just so you're aware.
Okay, thank you.
He did one of those deals where the pot doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
Severe, hard at work. Nyquil Severe is the best sleep for cold medicine. No tossing and turning, just rest and recovery. So take on for powerful relief of your worst cold or flu symptoms, try Nyquil Severe. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, best sleep with a cold medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Leo Zambrano says, if you have ever been in a rollover accident, it is terrifying. I still suffer flashbacks after 33 years. Yeah, Leo, my oldest sister, Kathy, when she was like in, I think, early college, was in a rolling over a Volkswagen Beetle. And to this day, when she drives, and that was decades and decades and decades ago, but she's a little rattled because that crash just, my brother was in that vehicle. Nobody was seriously injured, but it was a rollover, and it affects her to this day. So when you say that, Leo, I know someone who can certainly relate to that. Yeah, Frank Valdez, I saw that story about the new Breckenridge coach that was just named. Dean Stone saying motorcycle wrecks aren't fun either. I pulled a mailbox out of the ground after flying through the air. My God, yeah. I mean, talk about no protection. The specific age on Tiger Woods. You said 45, Shannon. I'm going to double check. You are correct. 45. December 30th, 1975.
So would that make him 43 when he won the Masters?
Ooh, I guess so. Yeah. See you, Carl. Thanks for being here. And thanks, everybody on Facebook Live. If I didn't get the chance, we appreciate your hanging out with us. I should have worn my Spurs glasses for the Bill Schoening interview. What was I thinking? Okay, thanks.
There are two music bands played in here before you're in music. Do you play two music bands?
To my knowledge, no.
I have one coming out of this block that is
Yeah. Anything you want to play on the way out is fine. Correct. Yes. Usually I would think about a minute out. But again, whatever's easiest for you, I just want to keep it as simple on you as possible.
I have to run the golf show every Saturday.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Wow.
I come in so that I want Andy to be able to have a live show. So
I never knew that. That's amazing.
it is one of those things. If you don't do it for a few days or a couple of weeks, like
Yeah,
really rusty. It's weird.
I imagine.
Truthfully, prior to this year, I hadn't run a board in about 5 years.
So was it like riding a bike, or did it take a while?
Every board's so different. That's the problem. Because you know how it is when you're used to it, you just kind of almost don't even look.
Yeah.
But it's I'm having to look. It's like typing with your fingers, but looking at the keys.
Well, and it's funny, the talkback in the ticket studio and in the OAI studio, same board, different buttons on op. So I always reach for the wrong talkback in each studio.
Yeah, me too. I don't know why. When they're basically the same board, so we just did everything else the same.
Yeah. Keeps us on our toes.
All right, here we go. Yeah, it's a good thing I caught that. That thing was playing the music, but it did not fire the trigger.
Huh. Here we come. Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show along with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Special shout out to the boss man, Brian Gann, who worked harder than anybody, I think, in Texas radio last week during the winter storm, keeping multiple radio stations and news organizations on the air. And we had technical issues this morning, and he jumped into the cockpit. So a special thanks to him for keeping this show on the air this morning. We have been talking about the big story in the world of sports, and a man who transcends sports in the way Muhammad Ali did, in the way Michael Jordan does. That would be Tiger Woods. And unless you've been in a hole or off grid in the last 24 hours, you must know that he was in a single vehicle rollover accident in Palos Verdes, California yesterday morning, 7:12 in the morning Pacific time. Serious injuries to his legs. He had to be extracted by the jaws of life. Surgery throughout the day. His social media with a release saying he's recovering from the surgery. He is responsive. Of course, we don't know what's next for Tiger Woods, but we did want to talk with Andy Everett, who is not only the voice of UTSA athletics, but a big-time golfer, a golf broadcaster, host of the golf show on Ticket 760, 8 a.m. on Saturdays, and a guy who has covered Tiger Woods extensively from the get-go. I call, and I think accurately, I call Andy Everett a Tiger Woods historian. Andy Everett, thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. How y'all doing?
We're doing well. I just got to you're so locked in and have been on the career of Tiger Woods. What was your reaction when you heard this news yesterday?
Well, I think like everybody else, we thought about this time a year ago when Kobe Bryant was killed in a helicopter crash. And basically in the same general area is probably a few miles apart, but same thing happening to Tiger. And then the reports that he was okay was certainly a relief for anyone that's involved in sports or even humanity for that matter. So the thing that I looked at, here's one of the first takes I had from it. I was on my way home when I got the message on my phone, the news update, and I turned on Golf Channel when I got home, and just to see how it was being covered, I flipped to ESPN, to MSNBC, to Fox, CNN, and had this been any other golfer, and certainly any other athlete, probably other than maybe Tom Brady or LeBron, it would not have been covered by everybody on the planet. And that's the magnitude of the scope that Tiger Woods has brought to sports and to all the different people around the world. As you said, you have to be off grid forever to not know who he is and to not know his impact, not only in golf, but just as a celebrity for the last quarter century.
When you're so right about that Kobe comparison with the kind of guy and player that Tiger is, and we hope he continues to get to be. Another name we brought up is Alex Smith. Obviously, he had a horrible leg injury playing for Washington. His surgeries continued to take place because his leg kept getting infected. There was even talk of potential amputation. We know now that he did make his way back. He got to play professional football. We don't know if he'll continue into the next season, but that
Good
in
morning,
itself
Frank.
was quite a story. Tiger's injury to his leg seems very similar as far as the description of the compound fracture, bone protruding from his skin. What are your thoughts on him potentially making his way back to playing professional golf?
I think it's really early to speculate that, and that's one of the things that disappointed me yesterday. I think Gottlieb tweeted this out and had it on his show, and there were others. His career's over. Well, we don't know that, and neither does anybody else. And let's not forget that 70 years ago, Ben Hogan was involved in a bus crash where he was run off the road and was in the hospital for a month and a half and came back and won a British Open. I've always known one thing: if you tell Tiger he can't do something, he'll figure out a way to prove you wrong. I don't think we're going to see him play golf this year, but I think that's secondary because one of the biggest concerns that I saw last night, and I thought of the Alex Smith thing too, Shannon, there was a report on Scott Van Pelt's Sports Center last night that he may need to have more vascular surgery to repair arteries in the leg that were damaged by the trauma. And that usually requires multiple surgeries. He's already been operated on 1 million times, and the body can only take so much. Now, I did read a tweet from Tiger's website today, and it appears that all the damage is to the right leg and not to the left one. Well, the left one was where he had the ACL issue when he won the U.S. Open and the broken tibia when he won the U.S. Open on a broken leg. But I think the first thing I hope for is that it's okay to be able to walk. You do have to use your lower body to play golf. It's very important. The legs are very, very important. But Tiger's is in generally good health. And if anybody can make a comeback, hopefully he'll be able to at some time. But I'm sure it'll be a long and slow and agonizing process to get there.
He is Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics. He hosts the golf show on Ticket 760 in San Antonio Saturday mornings at 8. He is a Tiger Woods historian and has reported on him throughout Tiger Woods' professional career. And I agree with you, Andy. You know, people who are saying he'll never play golf again professionally. You're right. If there's anybody who would have the will and the grit and the fortitude and the it factor and the magic to find a way back from this, it would be Tiger Woods. But I want to ask you about this. And Shannon brought this up earlier when we were talking about Kobe Bryant and making the comparisons. You know, when we lost Kobe Bryant, we lost another 30, 40 years of what Kobe might have contributed to the game of basketball, both men's and women's, as he was, raising his daughter to perhaps be a phenomenal basketball player. If indeed if indeed Tiger Woods does not play professionally again, I know yesterday he was on his way to a golf course, was going to shoot a video reportedly with Drew Brees. I mean, he's obviously the face of golf and the greatest golfer ever. If indeed Tiger Woods was unable to play professionally, what do you see his role as being, perhaps moving forward as an ambassador for the game? Do you think he will continue to have a major role in the world of golf for years to come?
I've played one of Tiger Woods' golf designs over near Houston at Blue Jack, and I've seen some of his other golf designs, and he's as good of a golf designer as he was a player in my mind. I think he's done a fabulous job of creating some really good golf courses early on in his architectural career. That will continue. He's going to be Ryder Cup and President's Cup captains into the future. He'll have a part of all of that. He will watch his son Charlie grow up and maybe follow in his footsteps. I think it's very unfair to expect Charlie to win any professional golf tournament, let alone 82. But he'll certainly try to mentor that career. His foundation is something that he is incredibly proud of, that has brought people to education and brought minorities to colleges and to further education that otherwise they would not have had. So his impact will be huge for years to come. And Tiger Woods is a brand, just like Kobe Bryant was starting his brand and starting his foundations and things of that nature. So, yeah, he's going to continue. And if he never picks up a golf club ever again, he's done far more than anybody else has ever done in the game.
Well, of course, as we know now, Tiger was on his way to the golf course to shoot a show with Drew Brees. He was also scheduled later in the afternoon to do the same thing with another quarterback. And just on Monday, he had done the same thing with Dwayne Wade. There's, of course, Instagram video of the two of them palling around out on the course. Do you have any information on what show he was shooting and what we could, if the show still takes place, what we can expect from it?
Commitments for his sponsors. So it could have been, maybe, I don't know if he's still doing stuff with EA Sports or not. I don't know if it's just a charitable event for his foundation. One of the things that the Valero Texas Open does after the tournament each year, and I don't know if they'll do it this year or not with COVID, but they have in previous years, is that they host a huge charity on every golf tournament, every golf course basically in San Antonio. They have double shotgun tee times and several hundred people participating in an event. It may have been something similar to that with the Genesis to have people out there, but I do know that they were trying to maybe shoot some commercials, shoot some video for the PGA Tour. No one's really said what the situation was, but I'm sure that once they'll use what they can of him, and then in the future, if he can do it again, they'll reshoot some other things.
Talking Tiger Woods with Andy Everett. And Andy, you brought up the number 82, and it's ironic. Earlier on Monday, we were talking with you about Tiger Woods and the fact that he's tied at 82 overall tournament victories with Sam Snead. And we were talking about when Tiger Woods was going to get number 83. And I just find it once again a demonstration of how we never know what the future holds and how quickly the future can change for anybody, and it could change for us. I mean, here we were talking about him. And if you're going to talk sports, it's hard to go a day talking sports in America or the world without talking about Tiger Woods. But, the same very week that Shannon and you and I were talking Tiger, just 48 hours later, here we're talking about this accident.
Yeah, and I was talking with somebody about the parallels to Ben Hogan. He was involved in a bus accident up north of Fredericksburg, somewhere in that area, going from one tournament to the next and returning home. And it was a foggy day. And there was reports that him and his wife said, hey, we should get off the road until the fog clears. And they tried to, and they got hit by a bus before that happened. And then 3 years later, he won the British Open. So there's that factor. And yeah, life is full of twists and turns, and you never know what the next one's going to be. I know that everybody's going to have their opinions on whether he's better than Jack Nicklaus or Jack Nicklaus is better than him. I think the contemporary golfer will go with Tiger, and I will too. I think Jack was great, but I don't think it matters. They're both one has 82 wins and one has 18 majors, and one has 15 majors and 73 wins. So how do you determine who was different? The technology was different. The weight training and the way that athletes took care of themselves is different. I saw a picture this weekend. It was a meme, and it was Arnold Palmer and Ben Hogan on one side smoking cigarettes, and on the other side it was Brooks Koepka and Roy McIlroy eating banana.
Wow!
And how have we changed the world in the way that athletes take care of themselves? I mean, you've seen that picture of Len Dawson at the 1970 Super Bowl at halftime, sitting on the bench, drinking a Fresca and smoking a cigarette.
Yep.
you're not going to see athletes do that anymore. So the world is different. It's changed, and it can change at any minute. And let's just hope that Tiger can go play golf with his kid in a golf cart in the next year, and then we'll see if he can make it back to doing his day job.
Well, and Andy, finally, and we got like 2 minutes left in the segment in the show, but you look at the arc of Tiger Woods' life, and we talked just a few weeks ago about this documentary that came out that Tiger did not participate in, and you mentioned that it didn't talk to the key people, but my goodness, you look at the twists and turns of his life, and this is just another major dramatic turn in his life. It's almost Shakespearean. His life. It's an amazing life he continues to lead.
Well, and I say this, especially in the modern world that we live in, where we have instantaneous news and social media and all of that. And so many people are quick to judge what happened and what didn't happen, and no one will ever probably know 100%. But I look at this with every celebrity. 99.9% of us are never going to get to know them as a person. They're not our neighbor. They're not our best friend. They're not coming to dinner. We're not socializing. Our relationship with these people is that they perform something that we like to watch, and they do it so well that we cannot keep our eyes off of it. And that's the alpha and the omega of our relationship with them. Tiger's got 100 people that he cares about, and there may be 10 or 12 that are really in his inner circle. And everybody else is just a fan of what he does so well. And it's the same whether you have an infatuation with a movie star or any other celebrity. You don't really know who those people are. Just take on face value what they do for you as an entertainment factor, and leave it at that. And if you're entertained by Tiger playing golf, then look forward to maybe someday him doing it again. And if you're not, then you're going to have to. If you can't, then you're going to have to watch old videos and see what else he can do to make life great for a number of other people through his foundation. But I think it's really sad sometimes when people start speculating things just because of what's happened in his past, when everybody that was there yesterday said that those things like the drugs and the alcohol and whatever else was speculated yesterday on social media doesn't seem to be accurate.
Amen. Our thanks to Andy Everett. Great perspective on Tiger Woods. And before we go out, Shannon, let's update our poll question.
Yeah, still overwhelmingly people are saying that they do not believe Tiger will ever play professional golf ever again.
I hope Tiger proves them wrong.
I hope so too.
Amen. Great job, Shannon. Our thanks to Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics, host of the golf show on Ticket 760 in San Antonio. Our thanks to the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. Thanks to the boss man, Brian Gann. Thanks to Jeremy Fouts for jumping in here and getting us up and running as well. You can continue to vote at Ticket 760 and at AM 1300 The Zone. Coming up, Dan Patrick and company. I'm sure a lot of Tiger coverage coming your way there as well. For Shannon, I'm Chris. We'll see you in 21 hours. Have yourself a great Wednesday. Woo! Adios.